to this computer. Okay. Hi, Andres. Nice to meet you. Pipe, bueno, primero, gracias porque yo sé que estás acá llenando espacios,
No,
estás
no, para nada.
en el aeropuerto matando tiempo, eh, pero la esencia simplemente con lo del nuevo puesto, ¿cierto? Yo quiero como entender mejor las formas en las que personas que están en el medio evalúan la eficiencia y la eficacia de los entrenamientos,
Sí,
específicamente en diferentes niveles.
sí.
Entonces, la primera pregunta
¿Qué
es,
son niveles para ti?
ya te los voy a explicar, ya te voy a
Ok.
explicar los ciertos niveles porque también quiero conocer qué niveles tienes tú. La primera pregunta sería si me puedes, te puedes introducir, todo eso es en inglés porque voy a pasarlo, ¿cierto? Can you introduce yourself and a little bit about your professional background?
Um, okay, my name is Andrés Felipe Salazar Gomez. I'm Isabel's brother.
Oh, no, Andrés, no. Bueno, listo, ya.
Bueno, no, I'm a biomedical engineer. Um, that's my bachelor's degree, Bachelor of Science. And I have a PhD in computational neuroscience focused on the science of learning.
Ujú,
I have experience working on data science projects, um, defining, implementing, and evaluating academic projects, both for higher education, PK-12, and also for continuous education. So this is for people that are already working.
ujú.
And also I've been working, and when we talk about defining, it's more about finding what are the academic resources that are already available, online courses, workshops, in-person activities, like understanding all the ecosystem and putting things together so they are cohesive regarding the learning gains that whoever is hiring us wants. So we focus on the skills, the mindsets, the knowledge, and based on that we create a curricular grid, a learning journey, and where there are gaps, we find ways to create specific courses that can fill those gaps. After we define them, we also implement them. I'm not so much in charge of teaching or delivering content, but I support in some aspects because if we created the program, then we support the ones that are creating the materials or delivering. But most of my work is in the evaluation and assessment of the programs. And we usually have like three lenses. One is the technology used for delivering the content, for interacting with the materials. So it can be online, in person, it can be hybrid, it can be synchronous, asynchronous, self-paced, instructor-paced. The other one is so three pillars, technology, content, and the goodness, I blank out. Anyway, content, you know what is content. So it's what is the material, does it make sense?
Impact, the impact, el impacto.
No, technology, content, and I'm missing the other one. But anyway, it'll come back later. So we use those three pillars that right now I'm blanking one of them.
Will come.
Oh, pedagogies. I'm sorry. Yeah. So one is what are you teaching? How are you teaching? So what are you teaching is the content. How are you teaching is the pedagogies in the way from the science of learning and how do we learn. And the other one is what resources do you use? So that how leads you to the what. That is
Okay.
the content.
Now,
So pedagogies, technologies, and content. Those are the three lenses we use.
to use pedagogy or andragogy.
I don't know what that means.
Andragogy, so pedagogy, andragogy is the learning for adults.
No. We say pedagogy in general, so
Okay.
regardless of
So
the
that's a
age.
different, okay.
Yeah.
We can
So
talk about that
one,
later.
one,
Andragogy.
one element that is very close to us because I'm from MIT is we focus on hands-on,
Mhm.
project-based,
Project based.
problem-based, but we do problem basically with guidance because problem-based without guidance is not useful. Approaches. Very proactive, active learning, but beyond active learning. So we seek basically the tradition of MIT that is called constructivism, when the students are the ones that are building the knowledge through the experience. So they themselves get immersed in the content, in the activities, and they learn by doing.
Yeah.
So we are not focused on teaching, we're
Mhm.
focused on learning
Yeah.
because teaching is centered on the teacher, on the facilitator. We focus on the student or the learner. So that's a big difference of
Yeah.
what we do.
So then one of the elements of andragogy is that andragogy is self-determined, which means you are not waiting for the instructor to tell you to do things. So in a way, you are more self-motivated and driven. Things need to be make sense with your experience. The other element is that things need to be applicable. And then the other one is that you're drawing into the experience, the previous experience. So you kind of connect that. It's self-determined. It's something that is problem-based and is applicable with daily things. You are leveraging in the experience, and then it's something that is kind of relevant.
Yeah.
Those are kind of like the elements of the andragogy. But perfect. Thank you so much. So let me ask you, how
No.
long have you been in this field? Um,
So I worked in academia a long time ago, in 2005 to 2008, more in the Colombia. But I'm aware of instructional design, of curriculum grids, and preparing content, and a little bit of not the science of learning, but at least how to structure syllabus in a way that activities make sense and don't overload the students. But after my PhD from 2018 till now, I've been working on education completely. And I done also a couple of trainings in the Harvard Education School in instructional design, in backward design and assessment, and it's a higher education certificate that kind of reinforced my knowledge in the pedagogies that are more appropriate. And those lenses that you were talking about, and Rajani, we kind of
you
follow
touch
them,
base. You kind
but
of follow them.
we don't,
Yeah, you
yeah,
don't
but
call them
we don't
andragogy,
call
but
them
you
that
kind
way,
of
yeah.
follow them.
Yeah,
Yes.
because children, you also need to engage them. And children have a lot of experience. You talk to them, or they always seen a cat, they seen a dog, so you use those as examples to whatever you want to do, right? So yeah, I think we're aligned. It's just that we call it differently. But in reality,
Right.
we
Yeah.
follow mainly the constructionist approach because that's where I work, and that came from MIT.
I think you touch a little bit about all the different organizations, like what type of organizations have you worked with in the capacity of evaluating. So you can mention in the academia. Do you have other examples you can share with us?
I mean, we work with schools,
Mhm.
only one institution. We're currently working with a whole country like Hong Kong,
Okay.
and changing the curriculum for most of the public schools, following their guidelines, of course, of content that is appropriate for the ages and the technology bottlenecks that they have.
So can I have some food?
We have also, I also work with companies, like we work with the Air Force and the Department of Defense, and they have a very diverse workforce, and they wanted to train them in artificial intelligence. So we needed to create learning journeys that adapted to the people's background, but also age. We have people that were like 20 and also 60-year-old. We had people that are clerks that just work like working with people in the front, and they need to use the technology, but they don't need to know algorithms behind it, right? So the kind of training we give them is more about awareness of what the technology does, and also understanding challenges and opportunities, and also to be careful so they are responsible users of the technology, responsible and ethical users of the technology. But we also have worked in the Air Force and Department of Defense project. We also work with creators of the technology. So in that domain, we went into more deeper knowledge about the algorithms, how things are working under the hood, so they can develop new technologies. But we also work with leaders at the Department of Defense, the decision makers. And they need to not have an idea of how the algorithm works, but more strategic point of view. So yeah, we work with different type of learning personas. In this case, in the Department of Defense, it was 3. We also work with children at different ages. So we have children in artificial intelligence with the Day of AI material and the RACE curriculum. We have children from 6-year-old until 18-year-old. But the funny thing is that material that is for the 18-year-old, we just modified it a little bit and we offer that to the Department of Defense leaders. Because again, we grounded that based on their background, as you mentioned, in their
You
knowledge.
use the examples. The examples,
Yes,
for example,
yes.
you just grounded with an example or a case analysis, and then you're good. Yeah.
And we talk about Air Force, so we gave a lot of examples. So Boeing, for example, with the problems that happened with these airplanes that were crashing and how the technology and artificial intelligence was affecting. So case studies based on that, rather than with a child, you have a case study that's mainly focused on, I don't know, let's make a recipe, and that's how an algorithm works. So children, we also work with higher education, like undergrad students and grad students, mainly undergrads, because it's more focused on early levels of the 4-year programs when they want to have like early access to AI, because everybody should have it. It's not only for computer scientists or electrical engineering students who need to know about AI. We think AI literacy is for all. So we we have projects on that
But
domain as well.
I like
So
that a lot.
yeah, we are like throughout the
Interesting.
whole learning
Yeah,
journey of a person since 6 year old until like 60, 70.
perfect. You were telling
Also,
me.
one thing you mentioned academia, public schools, private schools,
Mhm.
universities. We have partnered. We work with some universities in the U.S. and abroad, and with governments. Um, but also some of the material that are available can be used by anybody. So you can be a person that just have access to the material and you just use it. So we tried also to have access to create things that anybody can learn. So parents and communities can learn about AI and they can be literate. So they can support also their children and the community as well.
Perfect. You were talking about the three pillars. We're talking about content, we're talking about technology, and we're talking about pedagogy, the three pillars that you use. You use another framework when you're evaluating the stages. And an example of that is like the Kirkpatrick model or the ROI Philip model, which is kind of like the Kirkpatrick has like 5 levels where you start like analyzing first, did they like it? Second, did they learn? Third, are they applying it? Four, what is the impact of the organization? And then fifth, what is the, again, ROI or return on investment? Do you
It
use
depends a lot
these
on the
models?
courses. It
Ah,
depends a lot on it depends a lot who we're working with. So uh, let me give you an example that is outside the artificial intelligence. We have one project with the researchers focused on substance use disorder, and we're training them in entrepreneurship and innovation because we want them to create their own companies so they can create products and services to prevent, diagnose, and treat substance use disorder, especially in the U.S. because of all the crises that happened in the last 15 years. So in that area, we are focused on the National Institutes of Health. They are the ones giving us the money. So they have their own ROIs. So we need to, give them results based on their ROIs. So it depends a lot on who is our client, if you want to see it like that. Who are we working with? That we have assessments and evaluations. In general, what we do is first we arrive and we want to understand what are the expectations of the learners. We want to know what they expect from the activities, from the learning journey. Also, what is their availability? Because when you're talking, especially working professionals, they have a life besides
mhm,
studying. So
mhm,
they have families, they have work.
mhm.
And some employers think that they will do this in the extra time, which is not a good idea. You have to do it during the working hours, but you need to set aside the time. So we focus on understanding what are their expectations for the learning experience, what is it that they think they need in the field. We also ask them their familiarity or the level that they think they know about what we're offering, and we ask if they can give us examples of what they use it for and what technology they use, right? So it's kind of setting like the baseline. That's one piece, but it's more self-reflecting. We also have some batteries of instruments that are focused on the knowledge, and we ask them questions that only have a correct answer, so we can kind of get a baseline of their knowledge.
Okay.
That
We do
same
an
battery
assessment,
goes,
a
yeah,
knowledge assessment.
yeah,
Free.
that same battery will go after two, so we see if there's any learning gains between the pre and the post. Then at the end, in the middle of activities, we always do check-ins, assessing the. Oh, also we talk about time availability, connectivity, so access to the technology, familiarity with the technology, because it might be that you are understanding the topics, but because we're asking you to use a technology that is new, your learning doesn't progress. And it's the technology that is becoming a barrier for your learning.
I
So
don't
we all,
understand that. I don't
so
understand.
let's say you're a 60-year-old person that has never taken a class in Coursera, and we'd say, take this online course, and in the course there are these questions, you have to watch this in this order. They never done it. They spend a lot of time trying to figure out the platform because it has
Oh,
a
okay,
long
got you,
learning
got you.
curve. So at the end, they don't succeed in the course, they never finish it. You cannot claim they didn't learn or they didn't have time. The issue is that they don't know how to use the technology. So we need to reach out and find ways to make access to the technology simpler, the learning technology. So we also assess that at the beginning, so we understand where they are and their familiarity with like Coursera, learning platforms, filling out Google Docs. Some people don't use a computer. Like if you take my dad, he might get lost if you start asking him. He doesn't know he needs to press next to go to the next questions, right? He's not used to that. So we assess that as well. So familiarity and common use of the technologies, both in general and for education. So after that, during the process of the activities, they can be a couple of weeks, 6 months, a year. We do check-ins when we assess whatever has ended. We do an assessment of the course, like, was it appropriate, the time required, what is the main learning that you got from it, what things work, what didn't work. So it's more like quality control of the activities. We also sometimes evaluate specific activities so they organize the activities on what they like the most, what they like the least. So we know that specific content was well received, other content was not well received. So because we want to update that material for the next iteration, and we want the people presenting and organizing the curriculum to know, hey, you know what, this nobody liked it, and this was amazing. Let's do more about that. And those are like the check points. We also add some reflection pieces so they can give us whatever they want about the learning experience. So we pay attention to those as we continue with the learning. And let's say at the end of the program, then we go back to the baseline in knowledge and we check. And then we have a big picture of the whole program, focus on was the material appropriate? Do you think this? We also, when we ask about the expectations, we say expectations connected to the job or their learning activities with their undergrads. So at the end, we say, do you think that what you learned, you can apply it now? Or did you start applying it as you were watching the material or going over the material?
And we all of that is just self-assessment.
Yes, it's mainly self-assessment. We also have the knowledge, the content, the pre and the post. We have that as well. And then if there are answers that are very interesting or outliers, we invite them for interviews to go and delve deeper into their
that's an interesting one.
activities.
So then you still, may I say something? So then how is that handled with the being anonymous? That's not, you can track that.
We follow the IRB, the ethics committee, and an interview is an extra element. So you usually get consent to collect the data, and you say in the consent, we might invite you to an interview if we think that there's something interesting, but you don't need to agree.
But then they're signing a consent before doing that because they may even go into.
They give a consent to collect the data, but for the interview there is an extra consent. We invite them to an interview, and they can say yes or no. That way we keep two pieces of data
that
separated.
Again, they can't say yes or no, but you're saying if you get an outlier, you want to invite them for the interview.
And we get another consent for the interview.
But then again, that means that there is no, it's not being anonymous because you're still tracking them, and that's why you're inviting them into an interview.
Well, yeah, but we are the researchers, so that's always how it is.
Because there is a third party. There is a third party. You're kind of considered you're handling the data, and it's not like the organization that you know.
Yeah, we're the research team. So as a research team, this is what we do. We know everybody. We know who is who. But all the data is collected using subject codes, so it's de-identified. Yes. So for anybody that has access, nobody has access. But if there's any leak of the data, they won't see the data, the names and the personal identifiers because we use codes that we give them. So you are 1112 and I can be 1113.
Okay, got you. So, okay, perfect. So then that's kind of like the type of steps that you do. Did you do anything? I think you kind of mentioned a little bit that it also depends with the type of project. Like you will take it to the next level, but seeing the impact in the institution, organization, or the country just by connecting it with an ROI, which is if it's an organization that is actually tied with the medical field, with the substance abuse, for example.
Yeah.
That's kind of like the only way that you're being able to evaluate the impact in that higher.
No. I mean, no. Like, let me tell you also about, like, usually when you want to identify change or something that is happening, you need to triangulate data because one source of data is not enough. So
for sure.
Let's say for children in school that they're learning. So We focus on the self-assessment of the children's learning, so that's the point of view of the student. We look at their grades, so we have access to like an exam or something like that that can tell us about their learning. Then we go to the teacher and we ask about the children, and that way, those three different lenses aggregate at the
No,
student level.
I totally get it.
Yeah.
That with that triangulation, that's actually something that I'm right now pushing internally.
Yeah.
We're triangulating data because I asked them, how you doing it? And I think right now at this point, they're only looking one source.
Yeah.
And I'm going to bring the other elements so I can triangulate it in.
Now the key, well, the ROIs is something that we usually see at the end or in the middle if the project is big, and also after the program ends, we have touch points. Like for example, the SUD project, we reach out 6 months after the completion of the program, and 1 year, and 2, 3, 4 years after. Because in our case, we want to know if the training led to creating companies, startups.
Yeah, for sure.
If they got money, for example, from
Gotcha.
venture
If
capital.
they got grants, if the companies got
yeah.
grants, got recognition, got awards.
So we reach out,
Okay.
we reach out and we ask these specific questions because those are the ROIs that
Perfect.
we know are important for us, but also for the
Perfect.
NIH. And we also ask them after a year,
Yeah.
what content you really used and what content you didn't use.
Yes.
And what are the gaps that you still have? What are missing? What are we missing? So we can put that in our project, in our program, in our curriculum.
So I'm gonna
So
go
we try
back.
to, yeah.
I'm gonna go back into this one and then say, how did you gather and analyze data at this stage?
What do you mean analyze? Like most of the things we do is either Qualtrics. It's Qualtrics. Everything is in Qualtrics. So we have quantitative and qualitative data. The quantitative data is analyzed, using I use MATLAB to analyze the data. The quantitative data, most of the time I don't analyze it. That is a early education researcher. She's a principal research scientist, and she does most of the analysis of it. But I also review it. But she does the most formal, annotation, color coded, basically trying to find trends. She's not so into using AI right now for analysis of it. She doesn't trust it. But we see maybe possibilities of using it after it has been properly validated. But it's more of analysis of the open-ended questions.
Yeah.
That's an analysis that we do
as
aside.
Probably nest them and create themes, and then you try to say
we try to find
overall themes were around these 6 topics, like openness, clear in the content, innovative, new.
Or everybody's complaining about one tutor, or things like that, or time, whatever triggers.
Wording. Okay, perfect. Then the other one will be what tools or technologies you use to support the evaluation effort. So I think you mentioned you use Qualtrics, you use MATLAB.
Qualtrics, MATLAB. Sometimes we do
AI?
like
do you use AI for
AI, MATLAB is AI. I mean, you write an algorithm to analyze the data, that's AI.
Okay.
Qualtrics has their own summary.
Algorithm internal.
So they show us bars, and they can show us average, standard deviations, things like that. We can also do maps of the most repetitive words or things like that, so we can see what are the topics that they're touching base more.
What is that?
You ask people to say what word, like you collect.
Like
words.
a word cloud.
Yeah.
Then you show like how repeating is the patterns and start creating word clouds.
Like that.
Okay, cool.
But the main approach is Qualtrics results and MATLAB analysis of the data.
Do you use Excel or no? Just MATLAB?
Excel, of course, yeah, we use Excel. I use Excel a lot to clean the data mainly.
Clean the data and then
because people sometimes don't. We only accept people that completed 100% of the questions.
So
we don't accept 80, 70.
So then, with that being said, can I ask you a question? What will be the response rate that you will get?
Depends. 50%.
50. Like 0?
50, yeah. Okay. Sometimes no, sometimes it's just 10, 12%. So it's not that good. But we kind of have a process that we now know. We present ourselves at the beginning of the programs with short faces. We present the project short in 5 minutes. Then we're open for questions, and we try to trigger questions by using things that they might freak out. And then we're available to email. We email them rather frequently not frequently, but when we want to collect the data and we have reminders. And we ask our partners to mention, but not force them to be part of the research, but say, hey, remember that the researchers are reaching out, so look out for their emails, because sometimes they might not find us, they're too busy, they don't see
Do
it.
you use any type of incentives, like you're doing a raffle if you participate in this research? Did the institutions provide something, like if you're doing
Not
the
in this project. In other
nothing,
projects that I had, we do give some incentives.
like like
Yeah,
because
but
if it's more
yeah.
academic, you're probably compensating for doing
Yeah.
like
Sometimes you give Amazon cards or Target
Amazon
cards. I
cards
don't
and
like
stuff.
Amazon, so sometimes you just try to find other type of cards. But yeah,
Right.
Starbucks card.
Okay.
Um, but those are different research that are more focused on like I explore the skills of people that do glass blowing, and those are mainly grad students or undergrads, and they really like that you give them a card, like a gift card.
A physical card,
Yeah, so just
physical.
by saying that, they feel
Yeah,
more engaged to
yeah, yeah,
participate in the research.
yeah, yeah,
But we try not to make it the center of it, otherwise you would
yeah,
be coercing them.
yeah,
We never give money. Physical money, we don't give money because MIT doesn't allow
yeah.
that approach.
Well, that's interesting. Even for research, they don't
I,
allow.
I think they could, but there's a lot of, because it's a center place and it goes into your taxes, so it becomes very muddy.
Okay, gotcha. So, what indicators or KPIs, like key performance indicators, you usually use to track the effectiveness?
I mean, when we have the instruments that assess, let's say AI literacy, that's our instrument. The AI literacy questionnaires, that's a key element. It depends a lot on the approach. We do focus a lot on the amount of time required to complete all the activities, because most of the times, especially working professionals, they complain about that. So how long is the course? How easy, also how easy it is, how hard it is. We don't want people to say it's too easy, and we don't want people to say it's too hard. We
And the
want it
sweet
to be
spot.
a little bit hard, and
This
that
is
because that's
okay.
when your brain is triggered to learn. If it is too easy, you're not learning anything.
That's, you know why? That's called, you're actually showing the informational gap from Auenstein. He mentioned it that when people get a little curious about something, they want to learn more. But it's a sweet spot that it needs
Yeah,
to be the perfect amount, not too much, not too little, not too easy, not too. So yes,
yeah.
Auenstein.
So we focus a lot on that, on how hard it is, and
Yes.
we want this kind of a little bit hard, most of the people. We get a spread of responses because since we have a very diverse learning pool, we get people with PhDs in computer science, so for them it's easier, but for others that have zero knowledge, it's harder, right? So it's hard also to align the learning journeys for everybody's background, but we try. So we focus on that, how hard it is for learning this. Time is another element. We have our own battery of questionnaires to focus on the really, really what we care about, like AI literacy. Okay, we have that battery. Then we really we talk about the learning experience overall, like, and there's one quantifiable that we use. Well, one of these things they use in marketing, the net. Oh my good. NPR, I think, is the net
The
recording
net,
score.
the net
Net
promoters,
promoting score. Yeah, we
the
use
net
the net
promoters.
promoter
You
score. We
take
use that one.
the highest with the lowest, and then you subtract them, and then you just
We use
ignore
0
the.
to 10. Yeah, they ask
Yes.
us to do 0 to 10,
Yeah.
and we do the net promoter score about would you invite somebody, how
Yeah.
likely are you to
Yes.
invite
To
somebody to
buy,
the same program?
to
Because
those
kind
are
of it
like
pushes,
the loyal people, the ones that are improv the or against.
and it puts your skin, because if you recommend this to somebody, it means that if they don't like it, they say, why are you recommending me this? So we use the net promoter score a lot. Then the rest of it is a little bit more focused on the specific program. So let's say that
Do you
we,
use Likert scales? What type of scales do you use? Like
most of the times we do liker,
Likert
like
scale?
7. I like 7.
Oh, you,
My peer likes 5.
let's be
Um,
debate.
I and we one very special element is that we're very careful with the wording, because we don't like our scales that one end and the other in the middle, or
Like
not on
neutral,
the
dislike, like
in the middle of the extremes, they look very similar. So we are very careful with that. I like 7 because it gives you more spread, but when we don't know, we go into 5 because it's more easy, it's easier to say I hate it, I really like it. Neutral, I kind of hate it, I kind of like it, right? But it's not only the wording about hating and liking. We use like appropriate language that is more grounded to the learner's background and the type of content we're showing. Um, let's say, what else do we focus on?
So this one, can I ask you about this one? Like, how do you measure if they're applying their training in their jobs?
We ask them directly. We say,
But
since the
it's,
beginning of
again,
the
it's
content.
self-assessment. It's still a
Yes, yes. Oh, we can, because most of the people, we don't have access to collecting data from, their laptops or things like that. We just ask them, but we also ask other things like, this is another important piece that we also focus is community of learning, because most of the activities we do are online. They feel very alone, and a student by yourself, you just don't enjoy it, and you don't feel so engaged to continue with the learning. So we focus a lot on the community of learning during and after. So, and if there is a community of learning afterwards, it's very likely they're using that at work because they have questions and they need to reach out to somebody to answer.
Esa
Or
pelada
they
te
just
está
like,
mirando, esa pelada te miró como este, ¿qué?
anyway.
Hablando en inglés.
So now that you're talking about, are they using things in the job? It depends on the project. Like, let's say with the teachers, we will touch base in the future and ask them directly, tell me how you're
How
using
long?
this.
Like 60 days, 90 days, a year?
It depends of the project. If the project is 1 year, we need to do it quick. Uh, but let's say teachers, you train the teachers, then next month we ask them, okay, did you start using it? And they reply. We also ask, we have like journals. That's an approach of data collection too. So let's say we have a project with, hopefully in May, with tutors, and tutors will give remotely tutoring sessions to children, and they will use AI to create the lesson plans, right? But only half of them will use AI, the other half won't. We will ask the tutors, do every week, hey, how was the process of preparing for the classes? We don't ask about the AI, we just ask the process.
Yes.
So they reply,
You
oh,
can
it was
analyze with
easy.
AI versus not AI,
Yeah,
how we
yeah.
just make.
But we do the reflection as a way to measure they're using the material. It's just that we don't probe directly because we have two different populations. One
And they
that
don't know. Is
was,
that you're
they do
using like
know.
a
No,
control
they do.
group? Or
Yeah,
they
but they do know because, they know they've been trained on this. The ones that are not using it, they could be using it. We cannot force them not to use
but
ChatGPT or
it's still,
Gemini.
you're even not sure that if they're not using it, because
Yeah.
you may
So
say that they're not using it and they may be using
yeah, that's what we ask them. So we say, how do you create the material? Did you use any tool? Did you spend more time than usual?
Yeah.
So we're probing if they are using the learning
Gotcha.
into their activities. And this is, for example, for that project. For the people that are in entrepreneurship, we ask them after 6 months, 1 month, hey, was the program useful to where you are now? What worked, what didn't work? What are you using the most? And what do you feel you're missing? What information are you having to look for because we didn't give it to you? So that's kind of how we follow up if they're applying the knowledge. With the courses that are, some courses are online and you just take them, we evaluate beginning and end and we go. There's no way to do anything because they just go and we don't stay in touch.
Yeah.
And it's hard after they leave. It's very hard to reach out. They're busy people.
So with that in mind, what will be the challenges that you have faced evaluating training effectiveness that you have encountered the most?
Training effectiveness.
Yeah.
I mean, because training effectiveness
Evaluating a
is
training.
focused.
Yes.
Training effectiveness sounds as after the fact. So for me, it's more attrition. So people disconnect and don't answer our requests for data to tell us how they're
Gotcha.
doing.
It's kind of like
So
people that
reaching out
start
to
really
people.
good and then they start fading out and then they don't
So you
continue
always have like a lot of people at the beginning and they start stepping down.
declining.
And like we have people from 2 years ago and now they're, I don't know, 35. We had 20 responding. Now we have like 10.
What about other challenges besides that
Yeah,
one?
so people don't reply to the request. That's one, and they're busy and what else? I mean, reaching out is the hardest part. They changed emails. They gave us the email from the company, but now they changed company, so we got lost. So yeah, it's more about reaching them so they answer the questions. We rarely have follow-ups like interviews after 1 or 2 years, so we never try to do that. But I think maybe that could show some issues because people might not be so open to that. Data collection is not so hard because it's online, so everybody has connectivity. But I can see issues if you want to reach out, let's say, teachers in rural areas after you give an in-person training. When they're in person, you can collect things there. But when they go to their locations, they don't have internet. So if you try to reach out, you don't have means to connect. So you maybe need to be flexible and maybe recall the data using WhatsApp. So you can maybe do that, but that also puts some layers on how you're collecting the data, privacy, and those things. So it can be tricky. Yeah, the access to the people and for the people to answer your questions, I think those are the key elements. And access and answering the questions, meaning if they have access to the internet, to your Qualtrics tends to be heavy bandwidth-wise. So in these places you might not have it. So maybe Google Forms are better, but Google Forms is not so secure.
Or limited.
Yeah, so I think that's the connectivity issues with the learners can be
Interesting
a
that
bit.
you're
Oh,
showing
the other thing is the personnel, because if you're talking children, then having data in the later
because
stages
there are minors.
is
It's
no,
like
you can, but it's trickier. You can. There are protocols, and we actually have some children in our projects, but it just takes many extra layers of attention and is more cumbersome. But you can do it. But in the future, they also is harder to reach out because since they are children, it's like their mindsets are changing. They get, I don't know, maybe they're in that pre-teenage, now they're teenage, and they just don't want to reply, or maybe, so there, I think I can see challenges there also based on the population you're trying to connect with.
perfect. This is an interesting one. Can you share with me a training that didn't meet expectations and how did you deal with it? How did you approach it or improve it?
Yeah, but before that, I'm gonna tell you one extra problem that I see.
Okay.
Whoever you're working with wants to make this work, so you have pressure from the funder, and they put pressure on the learners. So learners are not giving you the right information; they're giving information that they
Just to
think
prove that it's working because of the research. Oh, yeah, I got you.
they want to
Forcing
make
the
them feel
result.
okay.
They're
And
forcing the
some,
result.
or when you run a test, the pre and post, they should be open and tell you, what they know. Some people cheat and try to find their answers and reply with those because they don't want their employers to feel that they're not learning.
They're failing. Yeah.
And that's a challenge when the communication is mainly driven by the companies, not by the researchers. Because we are researchers, by definition, we are the ones that should be communicating with the subjects of the study. But sometimes, because of logistical problems,
Company
we
takes
need to
control.
ask, not control, but we need to ask the company to send the email on our behalf. Let's say for the army, they have a firewall, so my emails don't reach them. They're blocked. So the person that invites them has to be somebody from the military.
Yeah.
But that means it's not Andres asking the researcher, asking them to reply, so they feel, oh, this is a third party, I'm safe. This is a military peer asking for the research, and they get confused.
Yeah.
Or in a company, when you have to sign memorandum of understandings, they might not let you reach out because we haven't finished the paperwork. So you need to ask, and they don't want to give you the emails, right? So you need to ask them to send the research questionnaires, but it seems like it's been sent by the institute, the NGO or the institution. So the people that are replying feel iffy, they feel weird because it's not really research, it's coming from their bosses. So that's a challenge when you have those logistics. So you need to push a lot to be an independent third party, so they feel that they can tell you the truth. Because I've seen some companies that, imagine, they do a survey to improve, but they ask you to put your name. That is insane. But that's the mentality and that's the culture that in the company. Or also local cultures, like people in some areas of the world, they
Yeah.
always have to put their names in the surveys and everything. So it's not so easy to complain or to look for improvement. It's always more about praising and telling what is working, not telling what is not working. So
Perfect.
yeah, that element of a little bit of kind of coercion and the local culture is also an important element that can be very good but also very bad. So
I
you are
think
the
also in
researcher.
Asia, probably like I don't know how you like in Philippines.
Yeah, Asia has a very hierarchical thing,
Yeah.
but also Latin America, people won't tell you where they messed up. They cover things with excuses, so they're not open about the mistakes. So there, the element is that when you start the research, you need to show the face, you need to make very clear, this is me, not the others. Everything is anonymous, you don't have to worry, and you also put in place resources so they feel that they are anonymous. So you don't ask them about their names, or if you ask them about their names, you do it through your own files, not through the company.
Yeah.
So that's a way to avoid these issues of them feeling they cannot open up.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay,
Perfect.
so you mentioned a case of not success, you said?
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you mean by success? Success from the research lens or from the
Training.
program lens?
Training.
I mean, from the research, we had a project with migrants and displaced people that we give them courses on computer science and a little bit of data science. It's hard to do research with them because their lives have so many things happening that asking them to reply to our emails for research, they barely answer. So we have really low participation always. So that's challenging. So our research has never been, like strong enough in the number of respondents. That being said, the feedback they give us is very valuable. People in Gaza, we have people in Palestine that they stop responding because, what's happening. People from Ukraine that are now in another country or they're migrating, they've been displaced, or Syria, or people that live in refugee camps and sometimes they don't have electricity so they cannot join to the classes. So the program they fail the program because they don't have the resources, not because they don't want to. It's because they have other things that are happening, or they need to provide for the family, so they need to go for a job, so they need to stop studying, and that affects the outcomes of the project. But it's because of the community that we're working with. So that's one element. The type of learners affect the program, and because the program is not the priorities, because it shouldn't. The children, the family, providing for them their own safety, running away from the bombs that have been dropped by a country. So that's one. Now, another different one is more about, I've seen projects where the people we're working with, they don't want to see the challenges. So they're very focused on
The good.
praising the good things,
Yeah.
and we feel pressure to not ask about what could be improved. So there's a little bit of friction. And I think that there is when there needs to be a clear separation between why you are inviting us to assess the program, and if you since the beginning make very clear we want to improve, so you need to change the narrative, because in some places in the world talking about what can be improved is seen as you're saying I'm doing a bad job. So you need to change the narrative more about, hey, you're doing something good, but it can be better. Or you're doing something good, but why don't we aim to scale more? Why don't we try to be more efficient with the resources? You need to change the narrative so they don't feel you're attacking them, because it's a cultural element too. In the US, people tend to be very open when they make mistakes. Actually, I made a big mistake last night, and I have at 4 a.m. to send an email saying I own my mistake,
Did you?
apologies,
You're
I
telling me
did.
that you did.
Yeah, and I have to send my email. In Colombia, for example, people tend to
Colombia
just
does
go
not.
over the bushes and say, "Oh no, I didn't mean that," but that's not really what I meant.
It wasn't me. I
You
didn't do
mis,
it.
no, but it's more you misunderstood what I tried to say. No, you just said something and it was insane. So you need to culturally adapt your narrative so the person that is promoting the activities, they don't feel you're telling them you are bad at what you're doing or you
Yeah.
suck.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that leads to challenges and programs not working
Yeah.
because they don't want to improve.
Yeah.
That's one thing. The other one is more about the projects from not from the research, but from the project deployment, the implementation. You need a good project manager. A project without good project managers is the
Ah.
worst. You need somebody that knows and has everything in their head,
Yeah.
because otherwise, as researchers, we don't have a person to reach out, and we don't have access to the learners. We don't have access to the people that we're supposed to be reaching out.
Yeah.
And also, if things collapse from the learning side,
Yeah.
there's nothing we can do for research, because it's like the whole train has been
Yeah.
stopped
Yeah. Yeah.
and we are in the back of the train. We cannot move because we need the train to move.
Yep.
Yeah, that would be me. Well, and the last one is funding, because some projects just end because funding is being removed. That
Yeah.
is a problem too. So I would say challenges, type of learning, their situations, fighting the cultural nuances that make you believe talking about what can be improved is bad, um, monies, and not having the right personnel to support the project.
Yep.
Project manager, oh my God, that is. I had both universes, the good and the bad. So,
So, what trends are you seeing in the training and performance evaluation today? Something
wait,
that you
can
have
you
seen.
repeat that, please?
What trends? Something trending.
What do you mean?
Yeah, what is like upcoming? What are the upcoming things, the new things that we need to check and consider when we are evaluating?
I'm sorry, I got distracted. Can you repeat the question from the beginning? I
Que,
cannot hear you.
yo sé o sea, que estás viendo que está moviendo la parada en el área de entrenamiento y de evaluación. Yo creo que
But
tú
you mean from the
mencionaste algo.
research lens or from the topics?
Yo creo que tú mencionaste algo y es, por ejemplo, el tema de AI literacy. Mencionaste eso. Yo creo que esa es una.
But that's content training, not research, right?
Yeah.
Now, so AI
But
now,
here, no,
everybody
but
wants to
hold
know
on, but hold
AI.
on. But here, since we're talking about evaluation, you need to connect both content and research because you're actually evaluating to see, and then you need to research and triangulate it
No,
in order to figure it out if things are effective.
not always. People just offer courses in things that are popular now, but they don't do research. They don't
No,
evaluate.
no,
They
I
just
know, I
offer
know, I know, I
things.
know. But what I'm saying it right now, like from the perspective of both, like,
Well, okay, so yes, so artificial intelligence has been around for more than 30 years. People
yes.
don't know why, they just don't acknowledge that, but they don't know sometimes. So, but now with generative AI, people want to know how to use it, right? And it can help you to be more productive if you know how to use it. It can be a pain because now companies are realizing some activities it slows you down. People think using generative AI or or these copilots, these agents, they can always make you more productive. Not always, because they're not humans and they make sometimes mistakes that slow you down more than if you were doing it by yourself. So there's apparently a little bit of research saying, be careful. It works in some cases, not in others. What we're doing is we think everybody. So let me give you the example I usually present. When you learn to there's this concept of digital literacy, right? People should know how to use the internet, Word, Excel, right? Because it gives you skills that are necessary in almost any profession. When you learn how Word works or the internet, you don't care how much the algorithm is created, the backbone, the black box, because it just does something, but it's not affecting the outcome. The Excel is addition or, division, that's fine. So in digital literacy, you learn to use the technology. That's what you learn. Now, with the internet and fake news and all this misinformation, when you use the internet, you need to start thinking, I use the technology to find something. Is that something correct? Are the sources the right ones? Is somebody lying to me or trying to mislead me? That starts getting into the concept of AI literacy, but not yet. But you need critical thinking when you're using these tools, right? With artificial intelligence, not only generative AI, but classical AI, because of the decisions that happen are based on data sets that are not representative of everything in the world, but a small group, because who designed the algorithm is a human with specific biases, the outcome of the algorithm has some problems. So you need to learn not only how to use the tool, the artificial intelligence, but you also need to understand that the tool is made in a way that can affect the outcome so you can critically assess if the outcome is right or wrong. And that's what we call AI literacy. You need to be aware of the nuances of creating AI that lead to possible problems with the outcome. So if you are a black person that is asking for a loan and the AI is actually charging you more interest rates as if you have a name that sounds white, that happens. If you're in judicial system and the algorithm that is deciding if you go into the prison or they give you, they can let you go if you pay some money, they take more people into prison if they're black because their name sounds black because it was trained with a data set that has more black people in jail. Things like that, those nuances. If you are applying to a job but you have a Latino name, you're less likely to be called to the next step of in the interview. So all these algorithms have biases. So if you are the user in HR of the technology, you need to know that that's happening so you can fight that. But if you don't know the basics of the technology, not how to use the technology, but how the technology is made, then there is a gap and you won't understand why that's happening. So that's AI literacy. So That's what we think now everybody should do, because now everybody is consuming AI. Everybody uses Word and internet, but you don't need to know how it works. But now you have in your phone somebody listening to you, looking at your face, you talk to it, you talk to ChatGPT, Gemini, you talk to Llama, DeepSeek. All of these are collecting your data. So now you're giving your data privacy, safety issues, ethical issues. A child is talking about being molested by the stepfather, talking to these tools. These tools should maybe connect to somebody, child services, right? There are a lot of issues. You're talking about health information that is private to you, to this system online. That system is collecting your data. So you need to know that that system is collecting your data.
Yeah,
So you don't say,
at
you
this
don't talk
point,
about that.
maybe at this point,
Okay, let me go back.
I think
Yeah.
AI right now knows more about my life than even,
Yes, yeah, yeah.
which is
So
true.
where I'm going with that is not only learning how to use the tool as we did with digital literacy. You need to know that these tools can be unsafe and they
But it's
can
because of
be.
the same thing. What you're doing is that you're opening a window for the good and the bad. So you're
Yes,
allowing everything to
yes,
come in and come
yes,
out. That's what you're
yes,
doing.
yes.
That's
So
exactly what.
what we want to do is we want to train you to be a responsible user,
And to
consumer,
know
and
when to
creator.
close the window and then know when you're not getting things in or out because you know that they're bad. You know,
Or when you see the outcomes, to be a critical
yes,
thinker and
yes.
and question the outcome.
Yeah.
Wait, how are you giving? Where are you getting this information from? And then you review. So AI literacy covers all of that. But because AI is now in our lives, everybody should be trained in AI. So to me, that's the thing. Now everybody should be trained. Everybody,
So
starting from children
yeah,
to the elderly.
I agree with you. I totally agree with you. So that's totally. Any other trends besides AI? Anything that you have been seeing?
I mean, the issue with AI is that people are deploying it without assessing the real impact, and companies are using it to sell products, so their interest is monetary. So there's lack of evidence-based studies, especially in education. And education has the element that is touching population that are children. So there is a trend now on that. Um, Data in general, even beyond AI, your data now is becoming. Data is money. You are a commodity for companies. If you have a service that is free, immediately think is never free in life. I am the currency. I am paying the price with my data. So that is also a situation that is happening now, is that we need to make people aware that they are a source of money for companies. So anything that is free, they collecting their data. So but the thing is that data is used by AI, so it's connected. But all this big data thing, is you are data. So there's a lot of conversations of the responsible use of the data, restricting things. Europe is very advanced in that. Actually, Colombia has some good policies. The US is way behind that. Um, Beyond AI, well, I mean, is that now it's everywhere. So beyond AI, now I think the problem that we're having is the lack of critical thinking in communities, because of algorithms. There is something known as the bubble filters. Bubble filters is what Netflix and all these YouTube recommender systems use. So what they see is you like something, they look for something similar and show it to you. And because of that, you start becoming part of a community that likes
You're
the
not
same.
exposed to things. You're just in a bubble and you're not exposed to what is going on. You're not aware.
And
I
we
totally
create these
agree with you.
silos.
No, I
And those
agree. I
silos
totally
are
agree.
pushing people aside
Yeah.
because we're not looking
Yeah.
at the other's perspective. So I think that is happening now is how do we bring people back together, because these technologies are messing up with our
Messing and they're
social
segregating.
construct.
People are right now so divided. And it's so
Yeah.
true. Like
Yeah.
society and culture are so divided for those bubbles.
So it's more about the social construct of
Yeah.
people interacting
Yeah.
in life.
Yeah.
You go to a library, you have a chance of seeing a book that is very unlikely you will like, but because you walk in the library, you see it, right? If you're online, they don't do that. They just show you what they think you will buy because it's driven by money. So what is happening now is a lot of people are trying to find ways to give you more independence on how you access material online, like YouTube, TikTok, all these things, out of the bubble. So I don't remember this. What is the name? I talked to a student from Oxford that she was applying to the Near Lab. She had these nice narratives on showing you how you are presented YouTube videos or Instagram videos based on the topics, and it creates clusters and then compare you with other people and show you how siloed you are, and what are your areas of interest. What is the algorithm seeing in you? So what she's trying to do is make you conscious, aware of what the algorithm is seeing in you, and then what is recommending you. So that is like a thing of now, how do we bring people back together because of the divide made by these algorithms? So that's a thing that is happening. People are trying to do that.
Perfect. So any other final thoughts? Now we're wrapping it up.
I mean, about life in general, or what do you mean?
About San Andrés.
I mean, I think
Ay,
Pergamino
Andrés,
coffee is
¿sabes qué?
very
Yo que tengo
acidic,
tu pantaloneta de baño acá.
pero tú me diste otra.
Sí, pero sí te llegó y sí te sirvió.
Sí, y yo tengo una rosada que me pongo, que me puse en Grecia también.
Yo te di otra, ¿cierto?
So can I ask you what is this for?
Claro, esto es todo para, ya te vas a poner, pues mira, Andrés, yo no sé qué es lo que está pasando con vos y conmigo, pero como que la vida vuelve y nos pone a los dos en el mismo campo.
Pero eso no es malo.
No, pero es algo que está pasando y es raro. Pues, porque mira que, por ejemplo, la posición que yo tengo ahora es eso, es en mi campo de evaluación. Pues acuérdate que yo siempre lo que hacía antes era más en la parte de educación, en la parte de consultoría, yo desarrollaba entrenamientos, es algo que yo he hecho. Pero ahora el cargo mío no es tanto de ser el facilitator, sino de ser la que evalúa lo que ellos están haciendo. Y a mí me tienen como la que los va a evaluar y la que va a ver qué impacto está generando. Entonces a mí me trajeron a la empresa y ya les he escuchado mucho a ellos hablando de eso. Creo que eso ellos lo hablaron mucho en la entrevista porque a mí me hicieron dos entrevistas y en la primera detonó esto para este puesto. Ellos como que cuando me escucharon hablando para la primera entrevista, me dieron mucho el tema de storytelling, ¿sí me entiendes? Y eso les gustó mucho cuando me lo empezaron a escuchar y las historias, cuando yo les contaba, de ellos a mí me dijeron, necesitamos que vos lleves el tema de evaluación al siguiente nivel, que cojas datos, que cojas puro data y sepas venderle a la empresa el impacto que nosotros estamos haciendo en el nivel de entrenamiento. ¿Sí me entiendes? Y esto es con la empresa, es como el EPM de acá. Entonces, ¿qué es lo que pasa? Ellos tienen y ya se han organizado mucho. O sea, ellos ya arrancaron en un nivel donde ellos tienen diferentes niveles de evaluación. Ellos evalúan cómo el entrenamiento de ellos tiene diferente impacto en varias zonas. Entonces, ellos arrancan el primer nivel, es si les gustó, que es algo ya estándar, ya está estandarizado y siempre mandan la encuesta. La segunda aprendieron, entonces se tiene el pre y el post, se les hacen preguntas y los cursos PIPE son cursos, te puedes imaginar, de todo campo. Hay campos de no solo entrenamiento a personas que están pues en la oficina, sino que estamos entrenando a los que se van a los postes. Entonces ellos tienen que aprender cómo te ponen el arnés, cómo quitan la energía, cómo van a bajar o sea, son todos estos entrenamientos. Y luego de eso viene el tercer nivel, que el tercer nivel es el nivel de behavior. Desde el tercer nivel de behavior es cuando ya se les evalúa si lo que están haciendo lo están aplicando en el día a día. Ese es el level 3. Y el cuarto nivel,
¿Cómo?
el nivel 3, el nivel 3
Entonces, el primero es como
¿les gustó o no les
contenido.
gustó?
Ah, sí, sí, le gustó, no le gustó,
¿O
sí,
no
es
le
más.
gustó? El segundo es, mira, el primero es, ¿le gustó o no le gustó? ¿Aprendió o no aprendió? ¿Lo está aplicando a día, lo está aplicando como lo debería de aplicar? Esas son fáciles de hacer. Esta es muy fácil, esta es muy fácil, esta es muy fácil. Lo que pasa es que cuando empezás a subir de nivel, las cosas son más difíciles. Ya te voy a decir por qué. Lo mismo, datos, recolectar los datos. Entonces ya llegas al cuarto nivel donde tenés que tener más variables y este es el otro problema. Esto no son, no es, esto no es causa. No podemos decir que porque se entrenó en algo, está directamente relacionado con eso y es la causa. Hay más
Claro,
variables. ¿Sí me
claro.
entiendes? Entonces, ese es algo ahí, ahí hay un problema. Pero sí se puede inferir. De igual manera, se mejoraron, se, moja- se me- me- reducieron los injuries, las fatalidades, menos gente ha muerto, menos demanda. ¿Sí me entiendes? O sea, hay datos con qué, ¿cierto? Se ha entrenado la gente, pero ya luego Volvemos a lo mismo,
Ustedes
vienen,
con los incendios, con los huracanes y
exacto,
cosas que les toca,
exacto,
entonces, ¿cómo
exacto,
responden cuando ocurren estos eventos que son
exacto.
mucha gente necesitando y ustedes no tienen suficiente personal? Entonces,
Entonces mira que viene todo ese nivel. Y el quinto nivel, que es el más jodido, pero para eso vuelve uno a lo mismo, dan datos. Acá lo que pasa es que mira qué es lo que pasa, que aquí aunque la empresa esto es, nosotros somos parte de una multinacional, pero aunque somos parte de una multinacional, las dos se tratan de manera diferente y el manejo de datos no se comparte. O sea, hay
claro.
mucho nivel de privacidad y la empresa maneja mucha privacidad porque maneja muchos temas muy delicados y trabaja mucho con el gobierno. Entonces ya te imaginas el nivel de privacidad.
Sí, sí,
Entonces,
porque la infraestructura eléctrica es
exacto,
un
es
tema
mueve
que
todo.
pueden, o sea, si China te
Exacto,
hackea, te pueden
exacto.
desconectar todo y chao.
Exacto, exacto. Entonces maneja cosas que de hecho esto que estamos acá hablando acá, pues no deberíamos, pero bueno, exacto. O sea, maneja un nivel muy, entonces ya el quinto nivel es el nivel de monetario. Ya hablar como el impacto que estás hablando, traducir eso a plata.
¿El entrenamiento cómo te ha ayudado a ascender en tu labor profesional en dinero o estás hablando de la empresa como total?
La empresa como tal.
O sea, que
¿Cuánto te ha ahorrado?
tú no haces evaluación de los empleados, sino como una evaluación de la empresa.
O
Ok,
sea, tenés que conectar los dos, tenés que conectar los empleados con la empresa. Entonces aquí ya tenés que evaluar cuánto le has ahorrado a la empresa. ¿Sí me entendés? ¿Cuánto le has ahorrado porque no te demandaron, porque
porque son
mejoraron,
más
porque son más
productivos.
productivos? Exacto. Porque ya no se enferman. ¿Sí me entiendes? Porque es todo. Ese es el cuento mío ahora. Entonces, el cuento mío ahora, que yo cogí esto, yo les hablé a ellos y si el que lo tomó, él se retiró y yo le pregunté a él, yo le dije a él, tú has triangulado los datos y me miró y me dijo, ¿qué es eso? Entonces ya yo le expliqué y me dijo, no, nunca pensé. Entonces yo ya le dije a él, yo le dije a él, bueno, entonces una forma es hacerlo, es simplemente, no simplemente hacer entrevistas, no simplemente hacer encuestas,
El
pero hacer.
estudiante, el instructor y hacerles un examen.
Claro, pero más. Entonces, está, por ejemplo, el instructor, está, por ejemplo, acá está, se les hace el examen, pero el otro es, por ejemplo, esta fue una que yo metí, que yo arrojé, que al jefe mío le gustó, que no lo había pensado, porque yo les dije a ellos, eso fue incluso la primera semana, yo les dije a ellos, hay un problema muy grande con los self-assessments, y es que la gente, cuando yo por eso te preguntaba a ti, ¿cómo evalúas que estoy aplicando lo que aprendí? Es un self-assessment, pero no, eso no tiene nada, o sea, no son datos tan concretos y tan
Pero tú
contundentes.
les pides ejemplos, tú los haces
Claro, tú les
explicar.
pides ejemplos, pero mira la otra, y esta yo la aprendí que me pareció muy buena con la otra empresa en la que yo hice la práctica. Tú puedes también tener una pregunta en donde la gente no se evalúa a ellos, sino que evalúa a los otros y ve los niveles. Tú evalúas a tus colegas.
Ay, ay, ay.
¿Sí me entiendes? Entonces es muy interesante porque yo, por ejemplo, uno de los datos que recolecté cuando ponía a evaluar colegas versus yo, el dato más alto era el mío y el dato más bajo era el del colega. ¿Sí me entiendes? Ese nivel de donde entonces las personas, está el Dunning-Kruger effect, que es donde las personas se consideran expertas y hacen menos errores que los demás. Mírame que ahí hay algo muy interesante donde se encuentra y ahí uno dice, hay que empezar a aclarar y a dar algo más tangible, porque la gente, la forma incluso en la que lo está valiendo, ya no hay claridad. ¿Sí me entiendes? Esos datos no están.
Pues hay un tema y es que cuando tú evalúas también a la gente, a veces, si la persona aprendió, a nosotros nos ha pasado, cuando hablamos de élitras y el pre tiene mejores respuestas que el post.
No, mi amor, todavía no. El PRE tiene más, mejores, espérame un
El
segundo.
pre,
Mi amor, pero es el mismo día. Mi amor, acá está el tío Pipe, no sé si lo quieras saludar. Espérame que yo te
hola
envío
Ali,
una cámara. Espera que es que estoy blurry.
yo por ahí te veo en la esquinita Alice.
Amor, mira, es el
Ay,
tío Pipe, muéstrale el diente. Muéstrale los huevos.
sí, muéstrame el diente,
Dale,
se te
ándale,
cayó el diente.
muéstrale al tío Pipe, cuéntale lo que hiciste hoy.
What,
Intenta en español. Fuimos
fuimos a Peter's house
la casa de Peter
and
y español.
we
Recogimos, we picked up,
we
recogimos.
busca huevos de
Huevos
Pascua
de Pascua.
y yo,
Muy bien.
¿sabes?
Pintar, drawing, paint, pintar.
Siguen la casa de Sierra y
El coloreamos. Coloreamos. Ya, sí, teñimos.
Flores a paint.
Para pintar. Pidieron,
Tú tienes
qué lindo.
yo pinto
Pinté, muy bien.
Yo pinté.
huevos.
Tú los pintaste, sí, yo los
Muéstrame
pinté.
los huevos, muéstraselos al tío
Este es
Pipe.
un conejo.
¿Quién es ese?
Este es un conejo.
Ya.
Qué lindo, y está comiendo una zanahoria.
Y sí. Este es un oso.
Un oso cariñoso. Alice, ¿tú los dibujaste? ¿O son unos sellos? Did you draw it?
Me dibujo este. Mi mamá.
Muy bien.
¿Y tú dibujaste alguno? Me muestras uno que tú dibujaste, Alice. Quiero ver.
Cuando yo hice este.
Ay, está como con estrellitas.
Estrellas, muy bien.
Está muy lindo. ¿Y qué dice arriba? Tiene como unas letras.
And
Alice. ¿Quién es Alice?
I'm gonna say Alice.
¿Quién es Alice?
Este es
Es verde.
chocolate.
Alice, ¿y la tinta los metiste como en agua y los dejaste ahí adentro?
Sí.
Ah, ya.
Oso.
Qué rico.
Y estos también.
Ah, ese lo rompiste por abajo para que le entrara ese morado.
No, lo pintó, ella lo pintó.
Ah, lo pintaste. Qué lindo.
Es el diente.
Alice, ahora cuéntame el diente. ¿Qué pasó? ¿Qué pasó? Estás haciéndole competencia al conejo, al conejo.
Cuéntale qué hiciste, ¿no?
¿Lo sentiste flojo? Estaba moviéndose. ¿Cuándo?
Claro que sí sabe.
¿Hace una semana? ¿Hace un año?
La semana más.
La semana pasada. ¿Y cómo se te cayó? ¿Te lo jalaste o mordiste algo y se cayó? ¿Cómo se cayó el diente? How did it fall? No sabes. ¿Estabas comiendo o estabas jugando? Hey Mike,
Hey, people.
how are you?
I'm
I'm
good.
like in a forest.
Worst, I know.
I found a chair next to the tree, but I've been
I feel you.
trying to be some green.
Yeah. I feel you.
Remember the first time you came to Colombia, they were so sick here at the airport and you were like not happy. That was not a nice.
Are you at the airport?
Ya, ese día.
I'm
Oh,
at the Colombian airport in Medellin.
even the airport's green
That's so true.
everywhere.
Everything is so green, like
That's the real plant.
green and humid.
Yeah, green.
Yeah,
It's
this
like-
is the plan is this is the plan.
Guácharos, guácharos, guácharos.
Alice, ¿cómo se te cayó el diente? ¿Estabas comiendo?
Todos comen.
Ah, una manzana y se quedó el diente pegado en la manzana. Así, y se quedó el diente ahí.
No.
Ah, en la lengua. ¿Y qué pasó luego con el diente? ¿Dónde lo tienes?
Helada.
La hada de dientes vino
Vino.
y
Cogió.
Lo cogió.
Me dio.
me dio plata.
Bien.
Te dio plata. Wow. Tú sabes que 5.
Wow, $5.
Wow. Hay otro que está flojo. No, solo uno.
Now,
Alice,
this one.
Alice, ¿tú sabes cómo le dicen al hada de los dientes aquí?
Ah, sí.
Al ratón
Ratón,
Miguelito.
Pérez.
A ratón Pérez.
Es un ratón, es una rata. Yo te conté que era un ratón, que nosotros no teníamos hadas, teníamos el
Mira,
ratón.
es un ratón, mira.
Ratón Pérez. Ya.
Pero él también deja plata.
También dejaba plata, ¿cierto? A usted dejó plata.
Ey.
Creo que sí, a mí también. Yo también.
Hay que de todas maneras lavarse bien los dientes. porque después de ese viene otro debajo, ¿cierto? Hay uno que va a crecer, uno más grande, más fuerte.
¿Viste la foto que te mandé hoy? Yo creo que se las mandé a ustedes.
Ayer mandaste una foto de Ali sonriendo y se le veía el huequito.
Oh, la foto que mandé hoy de
La de
Brandino.
Brandino.
Esa
Sí,
fue la de hoy.
sí.
Entonces,
Alicia, ¿hoy fuiste a
yo-
patinar o no?
No, porque estuvimos allá en esta
Ah,
área.
ya, ya.
Yo hice las tablas, a mí me gusta hacer tablas, a mí me gusta decorar, vos sabes.
Sí, sí, yo también hago
A mí me
con
gusta,
Gigi. Con Gigi hacemos también.
a mí
El
me
anterior
gusta
año, esta vez
decorar
me lo perdí.
y cuando las hice,
Los huevos, ¿no?
Los huevos. Alice, ¿y te vas a comer esos huevitos o qué vas a hacer con eso?
If you peel them, they're actually real big.
Ah, no se comen.
no, sí,
Sí,
porque
es.
son boiled, están,
Ah, pero ese dye, esas anilinas sí se pueden comer.
y mejor no, ¿cierto?
Yo preferiría que no, porque esos
También.
colores,
Sometimes the colors
Exacto, mi amor.
sí,
Exacto.
no es bueno.
Eso no, por lo general estos productos son muy baratos. Ya sabemos que cuando son tan baratos,
Sí.
exacto.
Mañana tal vez si comen huevito, pueden, como si
Alice
fueran los
comió
huevos
de
de hoy.
huevo. ¿Tú me comiste de huevo? Muy bien.
Y Alice, y puedes sacar la lengua por el huequito. Yo veo. Yo, hubo una época, un momento donde me quitaron los dos dientes de acá arriba y abajo y yo me pasaba un lápiz de
Le
lado a
atravesaba
lado.
un lápiz de lado a lado al tío Pipo.
Tenía un hueco
Tenía
aquí y otro
huecos.
acá y
Tenía
entraba
huecos.
como en un túnel, entraba en un túnel y luego salía por el otro túnel.
Yo me acuerdo.
He
¿Cuántos
said,
años tenías cuando pasó eso? Yo me acuerdo.
Como 10. Mira, un lápiz así de grueso como este. Mira este lápiz tan lindo.
oh, I have that.
¿Tú lo tienes? ¿Tú se lo diste? ¿Dónde lo sacamos nosotros? Yo no sé.
Yo creo que yo se lo di porque yo los compro. Este se lo voy a llevar a los 3 niños de las familias a donde voy. Porque Joana tiene un niño de 6 años, Mateo. Cumplió años,
Mateo.
6 años.
sí, cumplió años hace poquito.
Who's Mateo?
Mateo es el
el,
hijo de una amiga
el
mía.
hijo de una amiga especial del tío Pipo. Como decía el papá, amiga o amiga especial.
Y la amiga especial, la del lunar.
Ah, esa es la de Lunar. Ah, yo no sabía que esa era la de Pipe, pero ¿sabes qué?
Brother Luna.
No, es
A mí me recuerda el lunar, el de la mamá, pero es porque lo
No.
tiene grande.
Mira, espera.
Yo sé que es igualito al de la otra, al de Top Gun.
¿Te fijaste?
Sí, sí, sí,
Ya la
sí, es
buscaste,
muy
sí,
parecido.
ya.
Es muy parecida. Pero ese era chiquito, en cambio el de la mamá, es que el lunar de la mamá era grande, el de ella es
Olu.
grande. A mí me dan ganas como de. Debe doler mucho, pero es como el de la mamá,
No
es
lo
igualito.
queman, eso lo queman, pues, pero si a ella le gusta.
Pero ella no
hay mucha
quiere,
gente que dice
ella
que
no
es sexy.
quiere porque la mamá de ella lo tenía y ella perdió a la mamá muy chiquita, entonces dice que es un recorderis de la mamá. Y tiene uno aquí también como abajito del cuello y dice
También
que
de
tampoco se
volumen.
le quita.
También
Y
está-
le estorba, pero ella dice que no se lo quita, que porque
Pero,
la mamá también lo
pero
tenía.
¿sabes qué? Ese ahí ya es
Por
peligroso.
salud. Sí,
Exacto.
sí, pero.
A mí me
eso
pasó
es-
lo mismo, a mí me quitaron un lunar también por lo mismo, ella eso es salud.
Sí, eso es una cosa de ella, entonces ahí. Tal vez luego, cuando le tenga confianza, le comentaré mis opiniones. Porque la mamá murió de cáncer de colon, entonces el cáncer está en la familia. Entonces se tiene que cuidar. Alice, pregunta. Ya casi terminas el año. Ya pasa que un mes y piquito para que termines. Clases. ¿Cierto?
Tiene vacaciones de primavera.
Alice, tú sabes que en un mes yo voy a ir a visitarlos. En un mes exactamente.
En mayo.
¿Dónde está Brandino durmiendo?
Cáliz debería estar durmiendo, mi amor, baja. Mira la hora. No sé si tienen que-
Alice, qué rico verte. Un abracito bien grande
Amor,
y un
mira,
beso.
ese es el tío Pipe, ¿ves? Eso.
Chao. Ese mala cara. Tiene nombre y apellido.
Ay, Dios mío.
Tatica, un tema que se me olvidó decirte era, ¿todavía estás grabando? Yes.
Ya no, espere, yo lo paro para...
No, pero espérate, no, the one topic that is important is that AI is replacing technical knowledge, but AI hardly replaces
Soft
human
skills.
skills.
I agree.
So what we need to train people is how to work in teams, how to work with AI. AI is not a person that doesn't use AI is not competitive. AI alone is not competitive.
Mm.
People using AI are the most competitive now. So you need to have your human skills, soft skills, the professional
Like
skills.
I would say, good people with good soft skills that know how to use AI. Those are the competitive ones.
Yes,
I agree.
yes.